Hey guys, I'm Kent and welcome back to my channel. So today I've got my Repsol themed 22 Honda Grom on the lift, and I wanted to talk about intakes. So there's only a handful of companies that are making intakes for the 22 Grom right now. Steady Garage's Chimera was one of the first to market. That came out just after the bike was released, and I've had this on the bike pretty much the entire time that I've owned it. It's a great intake from a performance perspective. I don't think any other intake is going to make any more power. The concept for the intakes are pretty simple, and the Chimera probably has the best bend, and with the intake being out here in the front with the cold air, it's about as good as you're going to get. You could probably go with different filters or open air options that may give you a little more power, but then you lose the reliability of having a K&N filter on something like this. So from a performance perspective, it probably doesn't get any better than this, but there are other options from other manufacturers to solve different problems. So on my wife's 22 Grom, you saw that I installed the TST airbox cover, which keeps a more stock look, and then also keeps the rigidity of the side fairings. If you're not planning on doing the oil cooler like I did, I'm sure there'll be other options too to get the rigidity back in the side fairings if you take out the stock airbox. I was talking with David from Dingerbuilt, who just released their intake for the 22 Honda Grom. I'm a big fan of their product. I have one of their titanium intakes on my 19 Honda Monkey that's actually designed for a Honda Grom, but in working with him and finding the measurements, I did the tank risers and it just perfectly fit. And on that bike, it looks absolutely amazing. And again, from a performance perspective, it's fantastic. So when I heard that he was releasing an intake for the 22 Grom, I absolutely said that I'd love to try it. This solution is supposed to just fit with the oil cooler, so I'm interested to see how the pipe routes and how much space we actually have. So in this video, I'm going to do a quick unboxing, an overview of the intake, and get it installed onto this bike. So quick unboxing of what came in my kit. One is the intake pipe, and I'll open this in just a moment. It comes with the U&I filter. There's also a note here to reminding you that you need to oil your filter since they don't come pre-oiled. It comes with a little bag of some candy, a little bit of hardware, and decals that are definitely going on the bike, as well as a Dingerbuilt logo keychain. So here is the pipe up close. This is a plastic type material. It looks to be 3D printed, and with additive manufacturing, you can get much more unique bends in the material than you can when you're working with aluminum or some of the other materials that are typically used in air intakes and things like that. But the fit and finish of this is fantastic. It's extremely lightweight, and it has then the inserts for the sensor so that you can still use screws and torque it down without damaging the material. So looking forward to getting this on the bike and seeing exactly how it fits. It's got, again, some cool features like the Dingerbuilt logo there, and again, looks like an awesome piece of manufacturing. The first thing to install is the air intake sensor. You pull this off of the stock airbox. In my case, I just pulled it off of the other intake that I had on the bike. The supplied stainless steel hardware goes into the two retained nuts. And be careful with this. Since these are retained nuts inside of this plastic material, you definitely don't want to torque it down too hard. Something else that's really neat about where the air intake sensor sits on this now that it's on the left side of the bike is that you don't need that extension cable to run for the intake sensor. The stock harness plugs directly into this. Then for clamping, this actually uses the factory clamp that came on the stock airbox. Let me go grab mine real quick. All right, here's the stock clamp, and you can see it perfectly fits inside the grooves that were built into this intake. The kit also comes with an additional lock nut, and the reason is because on the stock clamp there's a built-in nut retained in the clamp itself. So you can either use Loctite to make sure that it doesn't back out, or you can also use the lock washer to make sure that it's secure. I'll go ahead and use a lock washer. These have been known to back out. When you first remove this from the stock bike, it's actually in there really good. They use some type of Loctite or glue to make sure that it doesn't back out. But again, you need to either Loctite it or use a nut or maybe use both. If you can see, there's actually a little lip on the inside of the side that goes onto the throttle body, which perfectly fits into the groove that's on the throttle body to help secure it. And there's some relief cuts here for a little bit of flexibility. Obviously not too much. You're not going to want to snug it down too tight, but it should fit very well. And so in this case, the intake now is going to be on the opposite side, inside the fairings, and hopefully just barely inside of the area where I have my Kitako oil cooler. All right, everything's a tight fit with so much going on. I'm going to try to file it in from the other side. So saying that it's a tight fit would be an understatement, but you can see that it connects to the throttle body right here and then curves up. Let me get on the other side to show you what it looks like. And then from this side, you can see where it snakes up and around, and I'll be installing the filter right here, but it looks like there's just enough space between the oil cooler and the intake. I'm going to move this line. I have it kind of angled in, but I'm going to angle it out just a bit so that I have the clearance to get that fit the way that I need it to. So I shortened the breather tube just a little bit so that it fit perfectly onto the nipple on the intake, but now it's a nice straight run. Make sure that you don't have any kinks in the hose though, because if you do, it could lead to an overpressure situation, which can lead to bad things. So as long as it's a nice straight run, it fit perfectly on that nipple, and then I just reused the little clamp that came with the stock setup. And then back on the left side of the bike, you can see how it roots up and that the filter does have enough clearance to clear the Kitako air cooler. And then the setup again from the right side of the bike, how the filter is pretty snug up there. You can see it's actually touching one of those oil lines. I think I'm going to angle the oil line out a little more just so that it's not touching the actual filter, but the routing of everything is very clean and tight. And I think you can really only easily get this type of shape when you're using an additive manufacturing process like they did with this. Aluminum, you have some restrictions on the types of bends that you can make, at least easily. You can do anything if you put enough time and money into it, but again, I think this is a great solution. And now the intake is tucked up inside the bike, so I won't see it anymore. And it's still up in the front of the bike, so it should still be getting the cold air as I'm at speed. So thank you to Dingerbuilt for sending me this intake. I think from an engineering perspective, this is the best intake for the 22 Grom that's currently on the market. I love how it just perfectly fits the space left over in the bike. And again, I think it's because they're using an additive manufacturing process that allows you to have a little more flexibility in your design. This intake clears the Kitako oil cooler. It also clears my TST sliders. And while I'm not running it on my bike, if you're running the Öhlins rear shock, the air can sits right here. And while you can run it with the Chimera intake, it needs to be slid pretty far back and off-centered to work. But with this intake, you can run it properly centered and you would be good to go. So this intake doesn't limit any of the other modifications that are currently on the market. It looks great, and again, I'm expecting it to get the same power as all the other intakes, but I'll be getting it on the dyno here pretty soon. Also, don't forget that you need to oil the air filter. I don't have the correct foam air filter oil in my garage right now. I have some on order. The instructions say that in a pinch, you can use engine oil, that you kind of douse it and then wring it out so that it has just enough oil to help catch those particulates. But I'm going to go ahead and wait for the proper oil and then install this at a later date. I'm also not going to button up the rest of the bike at the moment just because I'm going to be pulling off the head. I have a few more things to port to match up with some new products that I have waiting to be installed. So again, I'll link directly below to this product from Dingerbuilt. I think it's a fantastic solution for the 22 Grom if you're in the market for an air filter. Thank you everybody for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and keep on building.